78% of Canadians say that their personal finances has worsened due to inflation, and 54% of the Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck, and we're actually seeing similar numbers for Americans as well. If you don't want to be stuck in a rat race with the bottom 50% and want to achieve financial independence, then you need to pay attention to money habits, because most of these habits are programmed into us since childhood, no matter if the habits is good or bad. And this is also why there's a saying, the rich stay rich and the poor stays poor. So here are the money habits you need to be aware of. Number one, it's keeping up with your friends or social status. We all have friends that are richer than us, or at least appear to be, according to how they spend their money, because they're driving nice cars, eating at fancy restaurants, buying luxury bags or watches, living in 5-star hotels. And while it might be tempting to have all those nice things and show up as a certain status to people around us, the bigger question is, do you rather look rich or would you rather be rich? And if you want to be rich, then in those moments of temptation, for example, when you're considering buying a nice car, you need to ask yourself, is it worth it to pay that $800 to $1,000 per month for a status symbol? And you might be thinking, hey, it's not just a symbol, I also need it for commute as well. Well, the fact is, if it's just for commute, then there are actually a lot more cheaper options out there, like more affordable brands or even used cars. So at least you need to be clear with yourself why you're actually buying something. And if you start comparing to other people, then there's always going to be someone richer or someone who appears to be richer on their social media, and it'll make you feel bad and insecure. So instead, just go at your own pace and make sure you set boundaries for yourself as well when it comes to your budget. And if your friends invite you to something that you cannot afford, just be honest with them and let them know your priorities and how much you're comfortable spending. And if they're a true friend, then they'll definitely understand. Number two is spend first, think later. Most people like to spend everything on their credit card for the cash back or for the travel points, which I personally love as well because of how many air tickets it has saved me. But at the end of the day, you should really just spend on something with your credit card if you have the savings to pay it off right away. Because you have to know, credit card companies, they want you to overspend. And in fact, they're actually betting on the fact that you'll miss payments, because that's how they're able to charge you 20 to 22% interest and make money. Also, the buy now, pay later programs are the same idea. So it's all good if you can pay on time, but if you miss any payments, then you're looking at a hefty penalty of around 25%. Number three is paying yourself last. This is when you're spending and paying all your bills first before deciding how much you want to allocate for your future. So instead, what you should do is pay yourself first, which is a concept popularized by the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which you probably have heard of. And this idea basically means that you should automate your cash flow so money comes right out from your bank account regularly and automatically towards your saving and investment account. So this way you're prioritizing your financial future before using the remainder of the money to enjoy your current lifestyle. Number four is not being clear on your cash flow. Most people don't have a habit of tracking their expenses. So if somebody asks them which category they're spending the most on or what's the average amount that they're spending per month, they may actually have no idea. And when they do track it, then they're often surprised at how much they're spending in a certain category. For example, I've seen my clients' meal expense being higher than normal because a latte or a bubble tea can cost anywhere from $6 to $9. So if you're not being mindful and drinking those all day long, it's easy to overspend your budget. And when you don't have a clear budget, it's very difficult to plan ahead and also pay yourself first, like we mentioned before. So you should track your budget to know how much you're spending in each category. And if there are bigger items that you usually spend more on maybe once a year, for example, like vacation or car insurance, instead of taking away from your savings to pay for those expenses every year, just see them as a monthly thing that you need to pay into. And ideally open a side account for that very purpose. So for example, you can open a side bank account that's purely for your travels. And once you know your average monthly expense, you should set aside an emergency fund for yourself, starting with 1 month of expenses, then work towards at least 3 to 6 months of expenses. Because if you're someone living paycheck to paycheck, imagine if you suddenly got laid off or you got injured and you can't go to work. What happens to all your expenses in your lifestyle then? So have that emergency fund in place so that you would have the peace of mind knowing that, hey, if I got laid off or if I want to quit my job, at least I have the option to, and I wouldn't need to worry about the financial side of things for at least another 3 months. One of the popular budget tracking apps is called Mint. Now, I've heard mixed reviews from my clients. Some say they really like it, some say it doesn't really help and rather just track it on their Excel sheets. But if you're just getting started, then Mint might be an easier way to get started. And if you want to achieve financial independence and freedom, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Number 5 is expensive hobbies or impulsive shopping. It's easy to find something we want to buy when there's so much marketing and targeted advertising out there. I use Alexa at home, and sometimes when I'm just talking to my wife about getting a gift from Lego for my son, moments later when we're online, we would see those ads about Lego. So if you think about it, it's actually pretty amazing, but a little bit scary at the same time. But my tip for you here is when you want to buy something, try to at least delay that decision by a week or two. And if you still feel like you really want it or need it at that point, then you can go ahead. But 8 out of 10 times, you're going to realize that you probably just forgot about it after a week, which means it probably wasn't something you really needed. Another thing to watch out for is the subscriptions that we've signed up for. Because most of us have subscribed to a streaming service like Netflix, Disney Plus, or Crave. But for example, if you subscribe to Crave just for the Last of Us series, then you should consider how much you're still using it. And if you watch it maybe less than 5 times a month, then it's time to cancel the subscription and save yourself some money in the long run. And number 6 is being cheap. Have you ever bought some cheap stuff and soon after you realize that the quality is just not up to your standards? And in the end, you actually need to go back and buy something that's higher quality to replace it. I definitely have made this mistake many times, buying all kinds of things from furniture to even lightning cables, and all those cheaper items tend to fail on me sooner than I expected, and I end up having to go through the trouble to buy the more expensive item to replace it. So now I always buy the authentic chargers from Apple instead of the cheap ones on Amazon. Number 7 is paying too much taxes. A lot of people just pay it without realizing how you can legally minimize your taxes. Taxes aren't necessarily a bad thing because it supports our federal and provincial programs that are actually giving back to our communities, but if you're able to reduce your tax bill by doing a proper planning. And the government actually has a lot of programs that allows you to reduce your taxes legally. For example, with tax deductions or using registered accounts. So why not save some money on taxes so at least you can be in control and use the money the way you want that aligns with your goals, instead of letting someone else decide where the money is going. You should work with an accountant or financial advisor who has the most updated information and knows the ins and outs of how you can reduce taxes every year. For example, how you can use the RSP properly to lower your tax bracket, or how to plan ahead and optimize your future savings as well. I've done a video on the 6 RSP mistakes that you must avoid, so I'll leave the link in the description and the comments below if you want to learn how to use RSP properly. Or if you're someone running a business or doing freelance work, then it's important to know how you can write off your business expenses, or how you can incorporate your business to drastically reduce the amount of taxes you pay. Number 8 is waiting too long to invest. Once you've created a healthy amount of emergency funds, you should start investing your money ASAP to let the compound effect work for you. Because if you just leave it in your bank account, inflation is going to be your worst enemy and will be eating away at your savings every year. So never leave more than what you need for your emergencies in your bank account. And ideally, you want to automate your cash flow like we said earlier. So you're putting away some money towards investing automatically. There's a lot of reasons why people don't start investing. Maybe you feel like you don't have enough money to consider investing yet, or you don't know enough about investing, or you feel like there's so much choices out there, it's so overwhelming to even learn them, or you don't have time, or you just don't care about it. The list goes on, but the truth is, the more you delay it, the longer you have to work yourself to reach your goals, because you're not letting your money do the work for you. Even if it's just $50 a month, don't wait. And if you're someone that's paying attention to the stock market drops and thinking to yourself, maybe you should wait a little bit first, remember this: time in market is always better than timing the market. And the reason is because research shows if you waited and tried to time the market before investing and ended up just missing 10 of the best days over the course of 20 years, you would already lose more than half of the returns compared to if you just stay invested from the very beginning. So when the market is dropping, instead of waiting, you should actually consider a dollar cost averaging strategy for you to buy in at a low point. And this strategy usually performs very well in a volatile and downward market. One keynote here though is if you have any sort of bad debt, like a credit card debt, then make sure you pay them off first before investing, because the average growth in the stock market is not going to be anywhere close to 20%, which is likely going to be your interest rate on a credit card. So by paying off your credit card first, you essentially made a 20% return without taking any risk.